We got some more weekend news about Apple. Welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here, what do we do? Well, first of all, I enjoy beer. You enjoy whatever you want, cappuccino, coffee, you name it. We sit back and relax, and I kind of just tell you what I'm drinking, and then we actually get into the Apple news here, or the news about Apple. I go through usually about 20 stories, somewhere in that range. So without further ado, sit back and relax. It's the weekend. Let's get into the news about Apple. So what do I have today? I actually have Lagunitas. It's called Daytime IPA. So if you're actually not a big IPA drinker, Indian Pale Ale, I think this is actually the one for you. It's very, very light. It's definitely got a little bit more hops than like a lager or Pilsner for sure. But overall, it's pretty smooth. So again, enjoy your coffee or cappuccino, whatever you want to do. It's the weekend. Let's get into the Apple news. The first story is actually really good news for people that want to load Windows on your Mac. Over here, this is from 9to5Mac. It says VMware Fusion Pro 13 goes free for personal use. Here's how to get it. So it says popular virtualization VMware Fusion Pro is out with a neat update today. If I scroll down here, let's just read this. It says, now we provide a free personal use or a paid commercial use subscription. Users will decide based on their case whether they're commercial, whether you have to actually get the business subscription commercial. But otherwise, it says it means that everyday users that want a virtual lab on their Mac or their Windows or their Linux computer can do it for free now. That means on your Mac, you can load Windows on there. You can do a whole bunch of cool stuff with it. Anyways, good news for Mac users. I think it said the caveat is this has to be on the ARM processors or the Apple Silicon, obviously, to work. Anyways, if you want Windows, very easy. Now it's free. We've been talking a lot about iPads lately, so here's story number 2. This is from 9to5Mac also. Apple adds battery health menu to new M2 iPad Air and M4 iPad Pro. So obviously in the past you had to download kind of a secondary product, maybe a different app or something to kind of see what your battery's health was on iPads. It says it's been a while since iPhone users have been able to check battery health information. However, this new feature has been available on the iPad until now. It hasn't been available, but now with the launch of the M2 Air and the M4 Pro, Apple's finally bringing back the battery health meter, or it tells you exactly kind of, so if you're buying something, I guess, if you're buying a used one or something, you can look in there or tell them to send it to you, and you'll find out that information. If I scroll down here, this is in a different language, so it may not mean a lot, but right here in the second line, it's a different language, but it says 100%, so their battery will be, like, it'll list right here whether it's 80%, 100%, and that means the total health. It doesn't mean the percentage that it's actually charged. It just means the overall health of it, which is actually really cool. So you can go in here and take a look at it. I think the only caveat is it says that it only works on the new iPads. Even if you get the new iOS later on different devices, it's not going to work on there. Just take it with a grain of salt. At least it's something, right? Something moving in the right direction. Story number 3 is very similar to story number 2, but it's something that we're getting. But I don't know, you tell me. This is something we may not want. So over here for Mac Rumors, it says, extend M4 Battery Pro lifespan with this new feature that's built in. So Mac added this feature. Apple's new iPad, new M4 iPad Pro and the M2 Air both feature a battery health setting that is new to iPads when enabled. It prevents devices from charging beyond 80%, all right? So basically you turn this on, and actually down here, you can see it in here. Here it says 80% limit, so you have to turn this little marker on right here, and that'll actually make sure that it only gets to 80%. And let me just see here. So down in here it says, reducing the time that your iPad spends charged reduces the wear on your battery. With iPad, the 4 and the M2, you can now choose to limit the charging to 80%, which will help prolong your battery. When you choose 80% limit, your iPad will charge up to 80% and then stop charging. If the battery charge level gets below 75, it'll start charging up again. Now let me just answer this question. I understand all this. This might help prolong the battery. But if you're only going to be able to charge up to 80%, doesn't that really limit the total capacity of the battery? So in Apple's commercial, shouldn't they say instead of like whatever it is, it's 15 hours of use, it should really be 12 hours of use if they're only going to let you go. I mean, obviously you have to turn this feature on, but if they're telling you to do it because it helps prolong the battery and you can only go to 80%, then you really only have 80% of the capacity of the battery, or am I missing something here? You tell me in the comments. All right, so with all this iPad news and everything, now's a good time to pick an older version up. Here's another sale. I think I touched on this a little while back, but it's still available. It's the iPad Air. This is the 5th generation, so it's got the M1 chip. Still plenty enough for just about anything you're going to do on an iPad. Let's just be honest. 10.9 inch here, basically the 11th. 64 gigs, $399 right now, so it's 33% off. Usually $599. You can get, what is that, $200 off right now on this version versus the M2. I don't think you're going to see much of a difference on the M2 version, to be honest with you. I know there's a couple little things built in there, but overall, I think this is the one you want to get right now if you're thinking about the Air. Anyways, if you get some time, post in the comments where you're watching from. Where in the world are you watching from? Because it's the weekend everywhere. And just curious, right? So the next story over here, this is more about getting the most out of your devices. This is from 9 to 5 Mac. It says AirPods have way more features than you think. So that's kind of cool, right? They have a lot more features, but what are they? Well, I'm just going to touch on two of them really quickly. They actually have a custom EQ or equalization feature built into them. A lot of people don't know about. There's a huge caveat here. It says right here, the caveat is it only works with music from Apple Music. I hope Apple gives us the ability to create custom EQs across all media. But if you're using Apple Music, you can go in here and you can go check it out on 9 to 5 Mac, but it definitely tells you how to go ahead and set it up. And you can do equalization to get more bass and stuff. So if you like bass heavy, if you like more speech heavy, it's up to you. But the next one's kind of weird and it's interesting, but I don't know how I would use it because let me just tell you why. This is called Live Listen. A lot of people don't know about this, but what it basically does is that Live Listen is one of the most underrated features according to this. He says he doesn't know why they're doing it, but it's saying, as parents of a toddler, we use this feature a lot. It's like having a baby monitor. So you can set up your iPhone somewhere, and you can actually have it sitting there, and then you can go ahead and leave it there, and then go back and use your headphones, the buds, and you can actually listen in on. It's kind of like a microphone, a remote microphone, basically, like a baby monitor, right? That's what they're saying here. So you can leave it somewhere and then listen in on. I guess it's good for spying, right, or for baby monitoring. The only problem is this. If you do that, let's say you put your phone in the baby's monitor, you have no phone then. And for people that like to have their phone next to them at all times, it really kind of defeats the purpose, right? It's better just to buy like a $35 baby monitor, I would think, at that case. But since everything's so cheap now, you tell me what you think about this feature and what it would actually be used for. Maybe, like I said, spying on somebody, leaving it in a room and listening to them. That's all I can really think about for this, but it's on there. Kind of interesting. The next article is if you ever wondered if Macs are going to come out with a touchscreen or not, this gives us a little bit insight into it from some of the designers and some of the head people at Apple. From 9 to 5 Mac, it says Apple explains why it hasn't released a touchscreen Mac yet. So if I scroll down here, it says we don't see them as competing devices, we see them as complementary devices. Tom Borger, Apple's vice president of iPad and Mac product marketing, so he's one of the head marketing people there, told me in an interview, the iPad, he said, has always been a touch-first device, while the Mac is more indirect manipulation, whatever that means, right? He remained firm. iPads are for touch, Macs are not. Mac OS is very different, obviously, paradigm of computing. We all know that. People are always asking for Mac OS kind of on an iPad, right? That's what they want. So basically, long story short, he says he may not, they can always reserve to change their mind, but it looks like they're pretty firmly set in these ways. And I think it's because, I read through the article and stuff, it's because really they're kind of telling you buy both of them if you need both of them. They actually complement each other. That's the way they want you to think, basically. If they get rid of one, they're going to get rid of, obviously it hurts their sales. So I don't think they're ever going to come around on this as much as you want them to. All right, there's not a lot of sales right now going on. This is one of the better ones I could find. It's not really that great either. And I'm talking about Macs right now. So on Macs over here, this is from Apple Refurbished. You tell me, a 13-inch MacBook Air M2 now. This is the M2. I have one sitting right here. It works great. But I like this one only because, let's just take a look down here. So this comes with 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs. What is it? It's $1,119. So basically $1,000. But the kicker is you get that, obviously, the 16 gigs of RAM here. And that's the important thing on these things. So if you're getting an Air like I have here, with 16 gigs of RAM, it can do video editing. It can do almost anything with that 16 extra RAM. I know you're only getting 256 on this, but it's still right around $1,000. You can do like external storage, like a Thunderbolt 4 enclosure. So I think this is a kind of a good pickup. Don't be worried about the M2, M3, M4s coming out. The M2 is fast enough for most things. I do 4K editing on this just fine. So overall, I think this is one of the better deals, but it's on Apple Refurbished. All right, some good things from Apple. So if you have an iPad and you break the screen, it says right here, Apple Insider says, Apple makes breaking your new iPad screen a little less painful, right? So it says down here, buyers of the new iPad Air and iPad Pro now have the option with Apple Care Plus, you got to have that, to get broken screens replaced for just $29, all right? So before, I guess, it says specifically the screen can only be damaged, the only damaged item, any other damage on it will be $99. So for all it's worth, right? But for $29 a screen, that's a pretty good deal. Although I think it said in here $49 before, so you're only saving like $20 there. Long story short, $29 is a good price, I think, and it's fair. Although with Apple Care, I always thought that they should replace everything, just, things like that if you're paying for it. But I understand that a lot of people drop a lot of things, so $29 is a lot easier to stomach, I guess. Some good news. All right, so this next story is very, very concerning for a lot of people. It's kind of funny also, but it's not really. So it says this is from 9 to 5 Mac, iOS 17.5 is allegedly resurfacing pictures that were deleted years ago for some users. It's kind of a bug now. This is pretty scary. Think about this for a second. This guy says, when in conversation with my partner, I went to send a picture and saw that the latest pictures were from NSFW material we've made years ago and when we were living apart. It was permanently deleted years ago, but magically it's back. I checked my iPad and it also has pictures, some artwork I did years ago, so I feel uncomfortable now. So what this bug or whatever this is in iOS 17 is happening to some people, it's bringing back their permanently deleted photos from a long time ago. So if you get a little history with maybe, back in your day and stuff, or you got rid of some of those party pictures, this could be a problem for a lot of people, right? It's kind of funny at the same time, but a little bit scary. So anyways, you may want to keep a little eye on this. This is from, again, 9to5Mac. This is all I heard. You can check out the article there. And then this next one is even a little creepier, I think, actually. You tell me, am I crazy about this stuff? I keep talking about AI a lot, and a lot of people, some people love it, some people hate it, as far as me talking about it, actually. But look at this. 9to5Mac says, ChatGPT will soon be able to see everything happening on your screen. It says, at launch, the ChatGPT Mac app supports manually capturing a screenshot or uploading a photo, and then basically you can query it to ChatGPT. It'll actually look at it and do some stuff with it. But it says, in the future, as seen in this video below, you'll be able to click on a button that gives the app full access to everything basically on your display. So are you going to be comfortable with an AI kind of tool going into your computer, looking at your complete display, everything you're doing on your screen, whether it's numbers or pictures or whatever, and then having access to that, learning off of it, helping you? This is, by the way, they get around it by saying it's helping you, but at the end of the day, it's really taking that information in. It's got to go somewhere, right? So it's going into their servers. It's looking at that stuff. Do you feel comfortable with that? I mean, again, I just think this is going to go south really quickly. We can argue all you want, but I'm sticking to it, and I'm going to come back in a year or two and kind of prove myself once I'm right. All right, so if you like really bright screens on your iPhones, here's a good story. It says iPhone 16 Pro it's a rumor, get Apple's brightest display yet. This is by Apple Insider. So down here it says, let's just see here, according to the serial leaker, that's usually kind of right, I guess, the iPhone 16 Pro will have a typical maximum brightness of 1200 nits, up from 1000, and then a peak brightness HDR of 1600 nits, which I think stays the same. So I mean, we're getting up to the point where screens are, I think, bright enough. I don't know. I think it's just an added feature they keep adding to it. Although, I don't know, 1000, 1600, 1200, all that seems kind of irrelevant to me. I mean, I just look at the screen, and if I can see it, I can see it. I understand the situation, but at the end of the day, this is just a rumor. You tell me, do screens need to get brighter than they are? If they stop making them brighter right now, would it be bright enough for you? Or do you feel like when you're out in extreme light and stuff, they still need to be a touch brighter? Alrighty, hold on one sec. Enjoy your coffee or whatever you have. So it says right here, Mac rumors. It says iPad Pro, how Apple intends to avoid another Bendgate controversy. Remember Bendgate? It says in 2018, Apple responded to durability concerns shared by a new iPad Pro owners by admitting to shipping its then basically new models with a very slight bend in the aluminum chassis, which it blamed on a side effect of the manufacturing process. It was so light in any ways, and they were bending. And there was a whole phone bending issue and all that stuff before. So down here, if you're concerned about it, it says right here, in an interview with this guy, Urin Mayani, Apple's Senior VP of Hardware Engineering, John Taranis, I keep getting that guy's name wrong, but he's going to take over Apple one day, reveals that Apple has added a new protective cowling over the main logic board. This metal cover not only helps with the heat dissipation, but also effectively creates a central rib that runs through the whole thing and tremendously improves the stiffness of the products. So they've added like a metal rib through the whole thing so it can't bend as easily. I think they're learning their lessons because obviously people are going to try to bend it right away. And if you try to bend it like with some kind of press or something, you're an idiot. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you bend it just accidentally, I can understand that could be a problem. So I think they fixed it here. We'll see though. All right. Can't believe it, but the new M4 iPad and then basically the M2 Air iPads, they're on sale already on Amazon. I'll have links to all this stuff, but it's kind of weird. Not a lot of money, but obviously this is still right. They just came out. So it says Apple iPad Pro 4. This is the 11-inch M4 Pro here. $949, 5% off, usually $999. So you get $50 off right away, and it just came out or it's just coming out now. Same thing. I mean, basically all of them. Here's the iPad Air 13-inch M2 version. Doesn't even say, like, it's usually $799. It's $769 right now. I don't know why it's not showing the price off, but that's usually what the cost is. So you get about what is that, 40 bucks off, 30 bucks off? It's only 30 bucks off, I guess. So that's not as big of a sale. But the 11-inch here, this is the M2 Air as well. This is 5% off, so it's $599, $569. I guess 5% off is less when it's less money, right? I guess that's what's happening here. So you get 5% off on all of them. Anyways, just interesting. If you want to pick one of these up, buy it through Amazon to get that 5% off, which you might not get from Apple. I think you can still get Apple Care and stuff, but I could be wrong. All right, the next story is by Apple Insider. It says Apple and Samsung tied for top spot in customer satisfaction. For years, Apple always had the top spot for customer satisfaction as we know it. They always kind of said that was their claim to fame. It's changed a little bit. Samsung's really going up, and it might actually surpass it sooner or later. If we take a look, I'll try to zoom in on this graph down here. Look in here. So it says Apple right now, and this was 2023, it went from an 81 to an 82, basically satisfaction rating. Samsung went from an 80, though, to an 82, so they jumped up 2 slots, plus 3%, and now they're tied with Apple, so they're sharing that spot. Google went from a 78 to a 77, went down one point or 1 percentage. Motorola went up 75 to 77, and then all others actually went up just 1 point there. So overall, Apple's finally sharing that bar. Next year, when they do this, we're going to see who's the one that's winning it. Samsung's coming on strong, so we'll see. I actually have a Pixel phone somewhere sitting over there, and I use an Apple phone, so I'm one of those people that kind of interchange between them. I love Pixel phones because of the cameras and stuff. In any case, I'm a tech person as well, but I don't know. I've never really had I've never had one of the new Samsung phones. If you do, post in the comments what you like about it. All right, the next article from Apple Insider, I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It says UK newspapers tell Apple its web eraser will basically put journalism at risk. See right here? So, basically, according to the Financial Times, news of this feature has prompted the UK's News Media Association to complain, while the Financial Times says that the letter has to be sent to Apple's government affairs. Long story short is, Apple's coming out with this new feature called Web Eraser. So if you have a web page, you can basically kind of circle something on the page, an ad or something, and then when you go back there, that part of the page won't show up any longer. You can add it back, but it can get rid of ads. You can get rid of everything. And I know we have features where you can kind of get rid of ads now, but this is kind of crazy easy where you go to any website you want and you just kind of mark everything out and just leave the part you want in there. Not only is that weird, because then all of a sudden, if you go to the website, you may not be seeing everything that that web provider wants you to see, right? Because you removed it. You may not know it, although it's supposed to notify you that things are removed. Anyways, it can open up a whole world of problems. And if they can't advertise, I hate to say it, advertising is what makes all this possible. If you take that away, then there's only going to be a couple key players like Apple, Google, those type of companies. Even though they make all their money, well, Google does off of advertising, they'll have to restructure. But there'll still be only a few big companies controlling everything. So I think we got to leave some advertising in there. And I'm not so sure about this feature. I just don't know if it's going to go over too well. All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode of the Weekend News. I'm actually doing a little bit of traveling here. It's a little bit shorter episode this time, but definitely subscribe if you can. I keep telling people every week that I might make this into like a live show with some guests and stuff like that. I want to do that, but I have to get enough viewership in it so that I can get people on board with it. Otherwise, I'll be sitting there by myself, talking to myself, and I don't want to do that. So anyways, hope you guys like the content. Well, we're thinking of other ideas coming up here. Right now, I got to just do this temporarily, and we'll try to bring some more stuff to the show. And at the end of the day, subscribe if you can. I have a ton of review videos. Check out my channel, over 650. We'll talk to everybody soon. Peace.